revolution, you are with the Department of Freedom. So kick back and check out the show. You know? Yeah, people now. You're with the Department of Freedom. I got something to tell you. This ain't no democracy, you see. It's a constitutional republic. You see, you're with the Department of Freedom.
Don't let free speech go up in smoke, man.
Leading jailer, the United States of America.
I want to be a hippie god against no marijuana.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Talk it out.
Caring enough to confront the issues, you are with the Institute for Higher Learning. That's right, we are the Department of Freedom, people. That's what we're talking about. Serious as a heart attack. We're here once again. I hope you were with us last week. Had a great show. We have members from law enforcement. In fact, we are all volunteers for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. You got to go online, check it out. We'll be talking about what it is tonight. But I was hoping that you were all with us last week for the dialogue that we had talking about, well, something that's passionate to all of our hearts. Seeing this war on drugs come to an end and, talking about what it's all about. Now, you know who I am. I am Silly way out, Willy. And I want you to round of applause for my friend Cliff Thornton, drug policy reformer for many years, and he's got his mind into this, people. And if you were here last week, I think you know why. We're going to hear some more from him tonight for sure. And then we have Mr. Joseph Brooks, former narcotics officer in Manchester, Connecticut, here telling you why you got to legalize all drugs. Buzzy Zipwak. So, Buzzy, what's been on your mind this week? What's going on?
Oh, all that we've been talking about, this war on drugs and the hypocrisies of it, the hypocrisies of our legal system, the bailouts and the incentives to maintain this war on drugs seems to overwhelm or overshadow conscience. Is because that's why I would have to think that's why you're here, because you have a sense of consciousness of right and wrong, and what this war on drugs entails is wrong, because it's not beneficial to society. From all that I've learned, I would have to say it's not. Those are some of the things that are on my mind. And then when we were the show last week, one of the things is it ever going to end? Is this another one of them perpetual wars that's just going to keep going on and on and on to fuel our economy? So, is there hope? There's without hope, all is lost. So those are the issues that are on my mind.
Well, Mr. Brooks, for the viewers who weren't with us last week, could you just take a minute and let them know what brought you here today and from your past?
I spent 30 years at the Manchester, Connecticut Police Department, and while I was on the department, I rose to the rank of captain. As a captain, I commanded the detective division, and while I was in that position, a Tri-Town Narcotics Task Force was formed. I implemented and commanded that task force, and I did so for approximately 10 years. In 1980, this task force was formed about approximately 1985. In 1980, I had already spoken out about the dismal failure of the drug war. During the time that I commanded this unit, I saw so much tragedy connected to the drug war, and people, deaths, families destroyed, lives destroyed, jobs lost, opportunities lost. I just believe then, and I believe now even stronger, that the war on drugs is again a dismal failure, and we need to do something about it. As Einstein said, the meaning of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. 40 years now, we've done the same thing over and over again, and things remain the same. Any war, even Iraq, we did a surge. We changed our tactics. When, if ever, are we going to change our tactics in the war on drugs?
Thank you, Joe. Well, Cliff, talked a little bit about yourself last week and, what brings you here today. But, why don't you talk a little bit about efficacy and how that all kicked in and where that has taken you in the past 10 years?
Well, efficacy has taken me all over the world, really drumming up support for this. But as we were talking earlier, the only thing that's going to change this is real strong initiatives at the local and state level to change these laws in our state legislature. We were talking about change in coming from the top down or the bottom up. And the only reason why Obama has issued these statements about hands off these medical marijuana facilities is because he's honoring states' rights. And that tells us a lot. If in fact we can put together a strong initiative like, let's say, Rhode Island has, in 2012, they're going to really vote on the outright legalization of marijuana.
Yeah.
Those type of initiatives have to be put forth. We could spin as many conspiracy theories as we want to spin. And not saying those theories aren't true or they're not factual, because most of them are. However, the only way we're going to win is having that bottom-up change come from the state level and have the government, the federal government, having to deal with states' rights as they apply to the illegal drug trade.
Now, efficacy means?
Efficacy is the power to produce a desired effect, and the effect we're looking to produce is peace. And we're never going to find it carrying on like we are. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get there with you guys when drugs become legal. I just don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. However, if we keep putting forth these state-based initiatives like we have been and like are planned in the future, we will eventually get there.
Well, what the people need to know out there is how they can get involved.
Well, the way in which you get involved is to contact people like Joe and myself to get started in the area that you want to start with, because there are many facets to the drug war. There are things like asset forfeiture, there is prison reentry, there is also changing the policy like Joe and I are trying to do through speaking and organizing. There's also looking at what type of society we're going to have once we legalize and medicalize and decriminalize all of these drugs. We can't just legalize drugs and walk away. There has to be some type of indemnification. Even after World War II, there was the Marshall Plan to help rebuild the infrastructure. And that's what we need here in the state of Connecticut and all over this country. The money is there. It's just a shifting of monies from a war economy to a peace economy and utilizing those funds and personnel so we can move forward.
Well, I know one thing for sure, that to your dying breath, you're going to be on this war path, because this is a war. And our country's being devastated. We always tell you people, that the war on drugs is being used to militarize our police. We've talked about SWAT teams and the increase of, home invasions, honestly,
Yeah.
And come on, Buzz, what do you got up your sleeve?
Well, like we were talking in between the shoots here about, the whole question that we've been bringing up in the past, are cops your friends?
Yes, sir.
And just like what Cliff, you were just bringing up about, changing it at the state level, it still trickles down to in the street, like what you were bringing up when, the police officer that pulls you over makes the decision of justice whether or not to arrest you, and then how it goes on to the next step of whether the prosecutor decides to prosecute, and that whole concept of justice and all that. So this is the question, I guess, is the police our friends?
Well, bring up the point that how you were talking about when you were young,
Oh, okay, yep.
Peacekeepers, it's very important. I mean, there's a lot of viewers out there that, before 1976, they were all peacekeepers, and now they're law enforcement, and there's a big difference.
Oh, yes, there is. I mean, as a child, I was taught that police officers were our friend. We were to trust them. They'd be the ones that we look to help us in times of crisis and things like that. Whereas over the decades now, I guess since 1976, a lot has changed, and now the police are instead of peacekeepers, but law enforcement
Right.
and
as
law
we're-
enforcement of tyrannical laws.
When we were speaking earlier, we were also saying that, as the economy gets worse, and the bureaucracy needs to maintain itself, well, more laws are made, and, well, they're enforced, and they're therefore extorting more money out of the people, and, just to keep this whole system going. And, I know Cliff's already said what we have to do.
Right. Now, Joe, you had mentioned just before the shoot was that like the budget for the Manchester Police Narcotics Division, a lot of that money came from all the asset forfeitures that the police could get from arresting people, right?
That's correct.
So, I mean, can you elaborate a little more on how that whole thing works? I mean, just because, I mean, you being a police officer, it carries much more credibility than me just repeating an article.
Okay, I'd like to start by saying that I believe, having worked with these men and women over many, many years, that most police officers are honest, decent, hardworking people with wives, children, parents, of course. They are out there trying to do a difficult job. They are primarily trying to be your friend. However, the situations that they're put into sometimes does not allow that. A lot of the laws that are passed in this state and all across the country are passed not because they are needed or necessary. They're passed for political reasons. I call them gotcha laws. In terms of asset forfeiture, whenever we raided a home or arrested someone on the street, if they were in possession of narcotics or money, cars, etc., the courts have the power to seize those assets and to turn those assets over to the local police departments. Recently in Manchester, 2 people were arrested in a car that contained approximately $75,000, $80,000 in cash. From that arrest, a search warrant was issued for their home, and the total amount of money seized between the car and the home is approximately $239,000. That money will be forfeited and distributed somehow by the system to the police department and perhaps even into other aspects of the system. But some of that money will definitely go to the police department.
Now, Joe, did they find drugs?
Yes.
They did.
Yes,
In the
they
car
did.
or in the house as well?
Both.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's justification for,
Absolutely. You need to have justification.
Yep.
You have to have the probable cause that allows you to make the arrest and to obtain the search warrants that are necessary to go into the home, etc.
Now, let's look at this also realistically, and I honor what you said, Joe, but there are many cops out there that would say, for instance, I remember in the airport where this guy was going on a trip to play in the casinos, and he had something like $30,000 in cash on him. The attendant at the airport notified the authorities, said the guy paid cash for his ticket and he's got a lot of money on him. They took that guy and they took his money, and it took him 6 months for him to get that money back. I mean, I'm not saying that all cops are corrupt, but this gives an incentive.
Yep.
Because now it's not under the under the conspiracy laws. It's under the civil suit instead of the criminal suit. And what that means is that you are guilty until proven innocent. It's just
Backwards.
the opposite.
How do you think that guy felt? My God.
That's in civil court, and that's where they put, under the conspiracy theory, a lot of drug cases now when it involves asset forfeiture.
I'd like to say, Cliff, that the drug money, which is tremendous, there's absolutely tremendous amount of money involved.
Right.